Hello and welcome to the MTT webinar on the evolution of mobile in air travel, or EVOM as we like to call it for short. Please feel free to submit questions throughout and we'll answer as many questions as we can at the end. A little bit about myself before we begin. My name is Brendan Burke and I'm a digital consultant at MTT. I spent 15 years working in digital and mobile, and I've held digital positions with both Aer Lingus and Emirates Airline. And a few words about MTT. We have the largest team of travel specialists in the world, working closely with our clients on their digital travel strategies. We use digital and mobile technology to create unique travel experiences and grow our clients' revenues. And so figures. To date, we've had 25.2 million downloads of our client apps, 96 #1 travel apps, and 26 industry awards. And we were acquired by Travelport last year. And to quickly go through some of our customers. We built the app for Singapore Airlines, including the development of an IFE companion app. We're currently working on the new Aeromexico app, which will be launched later this year. We build and manage the multi-award-winning apps for one of the biggest airlines in Europe, EasyJet. We also developed the first ever app for Saudia. In April this year, we were proud to launch the new Etihad Airways app. We also developed apps for LAN and TAM, who are now LATAM, the largest airline in South America. Our non-airline customers include BCD Travel, American Express Global Business Travel, eDreams Autogeo, and recently the Collinson Group. Before I get into the detail of the evolution of mobile model, let's take a quick look back in time to see how exactly we got to where we are today. Some of you might remember well. Before apps, as we know them today, there was actually a world of mobile travel, even if it wasn't always the most pleasant experience. Swiss Air was one of the first to introduce online check-in. BA and American Airlines followed with seat selection. However, the available technology didn't provide the greatest user experience, particularly when it came to selecting seats. After that, there was some sporadic innovation, with Lufthansa offering SMS check-in and Continental, now United, accepting mobile boarding passes. But aside from that, there was very little development taking place. But then suddenly everything changed. 1 year after the iPhone's release, the App Store was opened to third-party apps supported on both iTunes and on devices. This development was about to lead to supercharged mobile innovation. British Airways was one of the first out of the blocks in 2008 with their app, followed by Lufthansa, Delta, and AA. The mainstay of the first wave of functionality centered around check-in and flight status. In-app mobile booking arrived in 2010, which was a big step up from the previous WAP incarnations, and the launch of Passbook moved things on further in 2012. And this has all led us to where we are today, and the trends that exist in the market for the past 12 months. The first of these trends is removing friction. This is all about the end of mobile field filling. Saved profiles in booking flows, passport scanning during check-in, and multiple payment options are all making these once traditional drop-off points disappear. Number two is multi-platform. Today's connected traveler lives in a multi-screen world, so thinking about mobile alone is actually tunnel vision, as apps are increasingly becoming experiences that live across multiple touchpoints. The third trend is mobile payments, but the smarter airlines are thinking more than just Apple Pay. Samsung Pay is expanding, Android Pay is live in the US, UK, Australia, and Singapore, PayPal One Touch is growing, and Amazon Pay is about to roll out. And finally, context and location. The app home screen is dead. What's the next part of my journey is becoming the new home screen. And all of this has come in the last 10 years since the iPhone was launched, and things have come a long way. Which moves us on nicely to our main topic, the evolution of mobile in air travel. So let's talk a little bit about where the evolution of mobile concept came from. Having worked with airlines for the past 11 years, we've helped them navigate their way through this evolution. There was no one set way to navigate EVOM, as every airline begins their journey into mobile in a slightly different way. Often the starting point is dictated by the different focus of each airline. Operations, brand, cost savings, revenue, innovation are all mobile drivers for airlines. And EVOM is also a benchmarking tool designed to help airlines understand where they stand versus their competitors on 5 key pillars. When airlines understand their position, they can move more intelligently, plan future mobile development activity in order to improve their position on each pillar. There are a number of pillars in the mobile evolution, and as I said, I'll talk through each one in depth in a moment. This evolution is not necessarily linear. Airlines take different paths based on their own priorities. Some begin with full solutions, some build from the ground up over years and years. However, each stage must be complete to become a market leader, a true mobile-first brand. And here's an example of that evolution. These columns are not meant to be exhaustive. They aren't the only elements that fit each stage by any means. I just wanted to show you an example of some of the things that these pillars represent. An airline is rated from 1 to 5 on each pillar. So to begin with, I'd like you to answer a quick poll. Although you don't have detail of all the pillars just yet, I'd be interested to see where at this point you most associate your airline's mobile strategy today. Or what pillar you most associate your airline's mobile strategy with today. So if you could all quickly answer that poll. Question again, which pillar do you most associate your airline's mobile strategy with today? I'll just give a few seconds for the answers to come in. Just a few more seconds for responses. Okay. So we have interesting results. Revenue 30%, acquisition 15.4, only the traveler 21, mobile first 30%. Interesting, a decent mix across each of the different pillars. So it'll be interesting to see later on how that perhaps has changed when I ask the poll question later on in the webinar. Okay, so moving on. First, we're going to look at the foundation pillar and what that represents. The foundation pillar is about getting the basics right and meeting your passengers' minimum expectations. There's lots of reasons to do this, but what we found particularly is that it can really affect your brand's reputation. As this slide shows, App Store reviews from over a number of years and highlights just how important the mobile user experience is for an airline's brand and competitive position. We see this regularly. A bad mobile experience and the most basic of elements simply leads to a lost customer. The functions and some examples which are shown on screen here are purely those that form the foundation, but executing on them well is essential. So our take on the foundations pillar. This is where you simply must meet customers' minimum expectations. Simplicity is essential, but is often difficult to achieve. The price of a poor experience across foundation elements can be very expensive indeed. As you can see the figure there, travel companies lost 2.7 billion in 2014 due to a poor mobile experience. Moving on to the revenue pillar. Once the foundations are in place, driving revenue comes sharply into focus. Ensuring cross-sell and upsell opportunities are being executed correctly and using targeted push messaging are key to driving maximum revenue potential. And let's look at some stats that highlight the growing importance of mobile revenue. T-News reported earlier this year that 51% of travellers prefer to book on a mobile device. And a CETA report shows that airlines are going to respond to this move to mobile by offering a wider range of services to their passengers. When it comes to maximizing conversion, the native app experience is very important. Apps accounted for 57% of travel bookings in Q1 2016, which highlights their importance over mobile web when it comes to driving mobile conversions. So when it comes to mobile, it's all about how you can leverage your mobile offering to contextually drive the greatest revenue possible, as these two examples show. Push messaging is a great way to do this, and our clients have seen very strong responses to push messaging campaigns, with in some cases over 50% increases in mobile revenues on a given day. So our take on the revenue pillar. It's all about execution. Get that right and the rewards will follow. Push messaging, when used correctly, is a great tool in your armory. Successfully driving revenue and ROI can also justify greater investment in other pillars within the EVOM framework. So let's move on to acquisition and engagement. This pillar is all about acquiring users on an ongoing basis, knowing your customer, and driving continual engagement, which is very important, as it's not just about acquisition. And the research shows that this is what passengers want. As you can see here, 70% of US travelers say that personalized offers are important, or very important. Marketing is an obvious requirement to drive downloads, and one of the most basic requirements is clear, SEO-friendly, on-site information that explains the features and benefits of your app. Video is also a great way to communicate the benefits of your app, and here's a good example from Singapore Airlines.
Introducing the new Singapore Air mobile app. Log in once and you'll always stay connected. That makes it really easy to track your KrisFlyer miles. Book a trip from wherever you are to anywhere we fly to, and get personalized updates when your flight is available for check-in.
You see, very feature-driven
or boarding.
Highlights key features and benefits for the user.
The new Singapore Air mobile app.
Shows
seamless travel made easy.
These are important for both promotion on platforms like social media, but also within both app stores. And it's also important to get creative with video. This video from EasyJet shows. A very simple Vine video promoting one benefit of the app. And general innovation in marketing is key in order to keep that innovation and engagement going, as we talked about earlier. Here's an example of marketing innovation from EasyJet pushing Apple Pay within their app as part of a Mobile Mondays promotion. So our take on this pillar and what it means. App marketing, in our experience, is often an afterthought. Consistent planning on acquisition and engagement is required. Show your customers that you know them, and they will reward you for it. This pillar is in the center because it supports all of the others. Don't underestimate its importance. Moving on to owning the traveller. This is all about delivering a great end-to-end experience and adding value wherever possible across the entire user journey. There are many other brands who would like to own your traveller or your passenger, and this only highlights further the importance of this pillar. And I'll go into a little more detail on that in a second. Again, the research shows that passengers want this engagement too. They're looking for value to be added throughout the entire journey, as we can see here, and that includes on board. This next quote from Forrester is interesting, as it very much dovetails with what we believe at MTT. It's all about rethinking the customer journey. Mobile is now the first touch point with your brand. Your passengers are now becoming mobile first, but they're looking beyond the simple book flights and check-in app of old. They want a mobile experience that is with them at every step of the travel cycle. And on that, in our experience, day of travel notifications considerably reduce the number of travel pain points that passengers face, as well as, of course, driving very good operational benefits for airlines that embrace them. And moving on to the next slide. As this in-app example from Singapore Airlines shows, destination content is important. So it's important to help users plan for inspiration as well. On the next slide, talking about other brands that seek to own the traveller, one of the main ones is Google. Of the 30 plus Google Now cards that are available, over 10 are directly related to travel. Just over a year ago, you only really had boarding passes and flight status as cards. Now you have leave for the airport push notifications, weather, currency, flight status, and photo spots nearby. And don't forget, all this functionality is available from Google without going anywhere near your brand. On the next slide, you can see how Google is not only about Google Now when it comes to owning travel. They also have Google Trips, which is in beta at the moment and invite only. We're using it here at MTT, and it's a mixture of an itinerary app like TripIt or TripPace and a destination guide. Google has said they're still in development and working on additional functionality, but it can only be a matter of time before they bring in booking, or at the very least, search. And moving on, it's not just Google who wants to own the traveller, it's the airports themselves. The last 2 years have seen the rise of what we call the intelligent airport app. Airport apps offer a select group of features, but at a critical point in the travel lifecycle, the day of travel. And it's this day of travel experience where airport apps are beginning to try to own your traveller. Moving on to our take. Understanding the passenger journey and adding value wherever possible is essential. If you don't, someone else will. Get this right, and the revenue opportunities are there. And now, moving on to the mobile first pillar, the final of our pillars. Mobile first is very much a mindset. It's about using mobile to delight customers and being driven by mobile innovation. Some examples here include embracing OS developments such as Apple Pay and Apple Watch, and using mobile to enhance the onboard experience with an IFE companion app. Mobile first is also about the integration of value-added content, as this video from EasyJet highlights on the next slide. This flight tracker feature allows the user to enter a flight number and track an EasyJet flight from a real-time map within an app. On the next slide, this example shows an American Airlines video and how AA has integrated Uber bookings within their airport map. This integration allows passengers to seamlessly order an Uber from the airport without ever leaving the app experience. So what's our take on mobile first? The main takeaway is that other pillars within your evolution may require more work before your attention moves to mobile first. However, to be truly mobile first, it should be your aim, and you'll need to structure your mobile teams and your resources correctly to deliver this. And on the next slide, we can see an example of a plotted evolution of mobile. This shows 4 airlines, each plotted against their competitors on each pillar. This plotting enables airlines to assess where they stand themselves and versus their competitive set. Understanding this relative positioning informs mobile strategy and facilitates decision-making and resource allocation. And moving on to the next slide, we'll just go through our next poll. So now that we've been through the evolution of mobile in a bit more detail, which of the pillars do you most aspire to? And you can select more than one in this case. Foundation, revenue, acquisition and engagement, or only the traveler or mobile first, feel free to select more than one. Which of the pillars do you most aspire to? And we'll just give a second for the responses to come in. Be interesting to see how this maybe has changed since the first poll. Okay, just a couple of more seconds. Okay, so let's have a quick look here and see. And that's interesting. So, interesting that only the traveler really comes out on top at 40%, followed by mobile first, so there's a major innovation thinking process throughout the attendees, and then acquisition and revenue are pretty similar in terms of the percentages, with foundation seemingly being covered by most of the airlines on the call. Okay, so only the traveler and the importance of that is really coming through from what we've seen today. Okay, so on the next slide, to sum up, an EVOM-focused mentality is all about mindset, and your business thinking and your structures need to be in place in order to deliver this. So it's not as simple as ticking a couple of boxes and delivering a couple of OS-based functionality. You have to really move your whole business towards having a mobile-first mentality in the same way that your customers do, and focusing everything to deliver on this. So that's it for the presentation. Thank you for attending, and we hope you found it useful. But I'll now go through some questions that have come through and take some of those. So, just reading through these questions quickly. Okay, so we have a question in asking, should we tackle the mobile first pillar while we still have other areas to improve? our take on that would generally be mobile first can include some innovations and innovation thinking that's always useful to have in a business. However, if there are other areas, particularly foundation, revenue, it's important to tackle those first. That there are elements of priorities that also come into this. In order to be truly mobile first, yes, you have to deliver on the mobile first pillar, but ultimately you have to deliver on all pillars. So priorities come into play. If there's lots of other elements that haven't been dealt with, we would say deal with those first before tackling mobile first and the features in that pillar full on. Okay, we've got a question here asking, what will be the use for airlines no interface apps like Apple, Siri, and Google Now? In terms of Siri, and I think voice is going to become quite important. And we've seen also Google Assistant launched at Google I/O, so that's likely to become a major player in the voice arena. We see voice being incorporated into apps. Right now, Siri has been opened to 5 industries, or a number of industries, but not yet airline travel. That will happen eventually. So I think voice will become a part of apps. In terms of Google Now, I think the biggest reference point that could be taken from Google Now is to look at the types of functionality and cards they're providing and how that can be incorporated into an airline's own app. Because Google has lots of ways, as we talked about earlier, in which they're trying to own the traveler. So I think the best way to combat that is to create the very best experience that you can within your own app. Okay, so that's the questions that we have time for today. Any other questions we will follow up with separately after the webinar. So I'd just like to thank you all for your great questions and your attendance. A recording of the webinar will be made available to you. Okay, sorry, just before I go, to highlight another question just popped in, so I'll answer it now. What do you predict for the Facebook Messenger bots? Okay, that's a good question. We're looking at bots quite closely, obviously, as everyone is. With Facebook Messenger, right now, a lot of the bots are quite similar. That would be our take on it. They're doing the same types of things, offering the same types of functionality, and they're not necessarily solving a problem. They're offering booking functionality, some servicing. So the objective seems to be to spread the audience, drive brand engagement across other channels, perhaps reach a slightly younger audience, and it does all of that. I think where bots in general get really interesting is where they can handle issues like servicing and IROPS. And I think once we get to that stage, I think bots become a lot more interesting. I think also airlines need to look at how they can address bots and chatbots across more than one platform and centralize their approach rather than dealing with a fragmented approach across each individual platform. They need a way to manage that, and they need a way to drive real business value. So expect Facebook bots to continue evolving. There's no doubt they will. But right now, like I said, I think they're probably kind of Me Too functionality and quite basic functionality. Once they start to solve problems, that's when they get very interesting. Okay, so we'll leave it there. Thank you again for all your questions, for your attendance. A recording of the webinar will be made available to you shortly, along with an ebook on the topic. Thank you and goodbye.